This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social, and I'm delighted to be joined by, well, I don't really know how to go about it, but I can't really say the recently retired or the retired, fully retired Craig Cunningham. That's what we're going to go for. Craig, how are you?
I'm all good, mate. Yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. It's good to hear that obviously you're doing well at the minute. It talks about life after boxing. Obviously, we've got a lot to go through because you've had a lot which has gone on in and around your name, which I'm going to pick up on in the latter part of this interview. But it talks about life after boxing for this moment in time.
Yeah, well, obviously I've got a day job anyway, which I had a day job while I was still boxing. Looking into the amateur scene, as well as a bit of personal training like Team Des Fitness. So yeah, there's still a lot going on. Still about, just not fighting.
You mentioned you're doing a lot in the amateur scene. Is that where you can see your career progressing to as you get a little bit older and you eventually move away from what you're doing for your full-time job at the minute?
You never know, you know what I mean? I'm happy with my full-time job, but I enjoy going down helping out on the amateur scene. So you never know what's going to happen. So I'll be happy keeping my foot in the door and we'll see where it goes.
We see a lot of retired professionals move into some form of coaching when they leave and they retire, like I say. What is it about yourself that's made you want to stick around boxing? I know you've retired fairly young for a boxer, but that's because of a lack of opportunities, and I've had this conversation with you many a time. So what is it with you that you've decided to stick at amateur boxing now?
It's been a part of my life since I was young, you know what I mean? So to completely come away from it seems a bit weird for me. So to be in and about it, that's enough for me. So I'm not fully committed, but I'm still there. I'm still there about it. So
now, obviously, your name's been floating around. Like I say, you've had a lot which has been associated with it. I think the first thing which I don't really know whether to come on to Ogogo first or your lack of opportunities. So I think we'll start off with the lack of opportunities that you've had this conversation with plenty of times. Like I say. You retired when you're only 29 now, off the top of my head? 31. See, you should take that as a compliment. So 31 now, but obviously you retired when you was 30 then. Obviously fairly young for someone to retire in boxing. We spoke about these lack of opportunities. You were scheduled to fight Tommy Langford on the back of the Ogogo victory for a British title. He pulled out because he went to fight Kurtzidis for the interim WBO light middleweight title. What types of fights were you offered prior to your decision to retire?
Like I said, all I ever wanted was a shot at the British. That's the shot we all wanted. I was offered it, it got snatched away, and it didn't come back. It's one of them, and then it's just rubber to green. I weren't lucky enough to get the shot. I should have got the shot, but I didn't have a promoter, and it just didn't work out for me.
Obviously, Tommy, who you was meant to fight, went on to fight Kurtzidis. When he pulled out, was there any talks or was there any agreement in place that if he didn't win, then you would be in line to be his first fight back for the British title?
Nah, there was no agreement for it, but you kind of expected it. The fight was made, the hype was there, everybody wanted to see me and him fight, and it just never happened.
Talk about your frustration, man, of that last couple of years for your boxing career, that you never had the opportunities on the back of beating Anthony Ogogo, who was seen as one of the up-and-comers from the GB squad. He was boxing with AJ amongst others. Talking about that frustration, that the penny just never seemed to drop for yourself.
He was there for everyone to see, you know what I mean? I'd beat everyone that was put in front of me, everyone that I was told to beat, but I just didn't get the shot. I don't know. I can't explain what was holding back. I didn't fight in another matchroom show after that. It was just one of them things. It all seemed to fall apart. I couldn't get a fight. Yes, I'd done a bit of sparring with Brooke, but fight-wise, no big fights came along for nearly a year. So I kind of lost all love for the boxing.
So I remember speaking to you about that when you went out to spar Brooke. And in that itself, I thought you'd get something out the back of it. You'd get, your name would be out there, and you'd have some form of a decent fight made. Was that what you was expecting on the back of the sparring, that your name would be out there and somebody would just look at you and think, oh, if he's good enough to spar Cal Brook, he'd be good enough to fight our guy?
To be honest with you, after after the Ogogo, after the year that I'd had, I just expected a big title. Maybe that was where I went wrong. You know what I mean? But nothing came. No big fights came along. Don't know. It's boxing. It's some people get the big shots, some people don't. I was the ones that don't.
I know in your last couple of fights you went on to fight, I hope I say his name right, Endel Famu in Manchester, and then obviously Jack Kulkai over in Germany. Just talk about both those fights. Obviously, I know you lost them both. Was there a lack of motivation in them to take those fights? Jack Kulkai is about to fight Sergei Derevyanchenko, who's lost to Danny Jacobs, who's now IBF champion. So it shows the level of opponent that you did go in with.
Yeah, well, Jack Kulkai had fought for the world title previous to me fighting him against the Southpaw. So obviously I was supposed to go over there. I suppose they thought they were going to knock me out, I guess. But it didn't go down that way. Yes, I lost the fight, and I wasn't motivated for the fight. I was actually fighting the fight, thinking, a couple of years ago when I could be asked, I would have done it. But I just lost all love for boxing. I mean, after I should have had the big fights, it didn't happen for me. So what's the point?
What about the Endel Famu fight in Manchester?
That was the same. That was nearly. I'd fought in between. Obviously, after sparring broke, I was fighting in a couple of 4-rounders, but again, nothing to get up for. And by the time I fought him, was nearly a year after Ogogo. So I'd lost no motivation. What's the point? I'm fighting these people. Really nothing fights. It was good. About England versus Africa or something, but nothing. I knew nothing was going to happen after them fights. So what's the point? And after the Jack Kulkai fight, because the fire weren't there, that's when I knew it was time to retire. You know what I mean? So I weren't getting the shots. What's the point in carrying on?
You've just said the fire wasn't there. Was it a hard decision to retire at the time because you knew you were so young? And was there always that feeling inside you that at some point the opportunity would come because of your past and who you had beaten?
No, because if that was the case, because of who I'd beaten in my past, I should have had them fights. You know what I mean? What's the point in holding on? Being a fighter is a massive commitment. You know what I mean? I dedicate my life to the sport, and I weren't getting the shot. So why am I carrying on the hope of getting a shot? The promoters weren't interested. I didn't find another matchroom show after I beat Ogogo. So what am I supposed to do?
Now, obviously, we've said the penny never dropped for yourself, but when you look at Jason Wellborn, someone who you fought and you was victorious against, he had the year of his life last year. He fought Tommy Langford, someone who you was meant to fight against for a British title, and then he goes onto the Wilder Fury undercard to fight Jarrett Hurd in a unification world title fight. Well, not unification, but Jarrett Hurd was a unified world champion. When you look at that, do you think, how on earth has it worked out that the guy who I beat has gone on to have that opportunity and I haven't had anything near that?
Yeah, of course, but Wellborn was far lucky with the fights, not in the fights. He's far lucky with the fights. He's fought for 3 British titles, won it third time round, and then defended it. I was looking for one shot. You know what I mean? And then he's went on to fight for a world, but that's obviously Wellborn done well there. You know what I mean? Fair play to him. Nobody's going to pass up the opportunity to fight for that, but I just didn't get the shot. That's all it is. And that's probably it made the decision easier. What's the point?
What did you make of Jason's fights against Tommy? Both of them were Fight of the Year contenders, and his fight against Jarrett Hurd over in LA.
I didn't watch the Langford ones, but I watched the Jarrett Hurd one, and he was doing well. He probably winning the fight. He was winning the fight. We just, Jarrett Hurd just turned it up when he wanted to really, and Wellborn, got unlucky, I guess.
From when you fought Wellborn, has it surprised you how much he stepped up and how much he's come on as a fighter and to find himself at the level and the fighters that he's operating against now?
Not really. I mean, boxing's a weird sport, you know what I mean? Like I say, I've beat them and then I don't get nothing, but Jason's done well. He's stuck at it and he's done well by it. So you can't knock nobody for that. It is what it is.
Do you feel any ill feelings towards Tommy or any annoyance towards Tommy in the sense that he never offered you that chance to have a fight for that British title on the back of his defeat to Kurt Seedis?
Yeah, of course. Like, obviously, I expected us to have the fight. It was all done. Like I said, the hype was there, and he didn't want it. Like, that fight would have sold. It would have been a good fight. I don't know what it sold at when he fought Wildborn, but maybe that was the same kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's still a sellable fight. But he went with somebody I've already beat instead.
Langford's moving up now to super middleweight. He's fighting Lerone Richards for the Commonwealth title. I don't know if you know anything about Lerone, but he's 11-0. I think he's got 9 KOs or something. How do you think Tommy's going to fare at super middleweight?
I don't know, because with Wildborn, people were saying that every time Wildborn hit him, he looked like Langford was going to go. So what? Can he take the shots? No, I don't know.
And obviously,
going at the bigger weight, you know what I mean? It's heavier punches, so we'll see.
And obviously, the next thing I'm going to come on to is Anthony Ogogo. Not necessarily because of a fight, but you were the last person to fight him, and he's recently announced his retirement. He's posted a lot of videos over social media that he's had 6 or 7 eye operations because of the dislocated eye socket, I believe it was. What have you made of his journey and these last couple of years for Ogogo? Do you feel any sorrow or any sense of like pity, not pity, but empathy towards him?
Of course, you don't wish injury on any fight. You know what I mean? We both get in there. We both know the risk. I fought the fight of my life that night. You know what I mean? And it was good enough to beat him. Ogogo was an Olympic champion or whatever. But on the build up to that fight, he was beating and knocking people out. So, I fought a good fight. He got an injury during the fight, and I fought better than him that night. That's it.
Do you think he overlooked you on that fight?
100%. Of course, he's going to overlook me. He already had a fight lined up after me, so maybe he did overlook me, which I knew going into that fight was going to be a big mistake.
So obviously, since his injuries have come out and he's announced his retirement, have you had any conversations? Have you had any form of involvement with him where you've been able to say, like, I'm sorry for what's happened, or?
No, he's just doing his thing now. Because he's a public figure. He'll still be in and about, the TV, and he'll be doing punditry, I guess. He'll still make money in and about boxing or sport. Because he's a public figure. Olympic bronze medalist.
It's kind of surprising that obviously nothing's happened. Would you reach out to him? Would you have that conversation with him just to say, I'm sorry that I was the last person that's fought you, and obviously it's coming on the back of that the injuries have occurred?
Nah, it's the fight game. We both know the risk. Obviously, I don't wish injury on no fighter or any sportsman. You know what I mean? But it's the fight game. It's a hard sport. It could have happened to me, but it's obviously, like I said, I don't wish it on no one. But it happens in the ring.
Do you think that it was an accumulation of punches he may have taken over time that aided towards the injuries occurring, or do you think it was more so he overlooked you and he never protected himself enough and he allowed you to land more than what he probably would do? What do you think it would be?
I was superior that night. You know what I mean? I was catching him at well, and I felt comfortable. Every time I was throwing shots, I was catching him, and that was from the start of the fight till it eventually finished. So yeah, I think I was overlooked. He wasn't expecting a hard fight, and I gave him a hard fight.
Have you seen any of his videos or any of those that have gone over social media?
I don't look too much, but I've seen 1 or 2. People are tagging me and stuff. But again, he's a public figure, so he'll always shine, won't he?
So when you say people have been tagging you, if it's been tagging you trying to put a blame on you, or have been tagging you just to show you, like?
I guess just to show me, nothing's been said there, just tag my name in it, so I see it. Like I say, I'm not going to sit there and watch all of his videos, because God knows how many videos he's made. Well, yeah, it is what it is.
So that's obviously the Ogogo situation dealt with. What would it take for Craig Cunningham to get back into the ring?
A lot of money in the British title. Nah, that's all it's ever been. Like all I was ever after was a shot at the British title. I can't see that coming now, so I'm happy retired. Good job, good family behind me, so I'm happy.
Have you had any conversations with anyone since retirement to see if they could maybe get you back out 1 or 2 more times?
Yeah, I had a talk with another management team, see what the thought, see what the process was about getting the big fights and coming back maybe. But no promises could be made, and so that wasn't enough for me to get back in the ring.
Do you want to drop any names in there?
Nah, that's it.
So just away from yourself, then we'll stick in and around Birmingham. Over the weekend we saw Sam Eggington, one of your former campmates, as it were, going in with Liam Smith. What did you make of the bout?
Sam's a good friend, and that, he was a massive underdog, which Sam knew this. It's always a dangerous fight going in against Smith. Andi comes on, the longer the fight goes, so having that eye injury early on, he's only going to pick up on it, keep aiming for that spot, and it caused a lot of damage to the eye. So always a tough fight, but the way Sam fights, always a possibility. You know what I mean? He's been written off plenty of times in his career, and he's come through. Knocked people out. So you never know in boxing. One shot can change everything. But Sam was unlucky that night. I'm gutted for him, but he'll come again strong. He's still only young himself.
On the back of his defeat to Mulkinho in Birmingham and then Liam Smith in Liverpool, what do you think Sam's got left in the tank?
I think he needs a good break, and then slowly build up again. Because like I said, he's still young, and he can build it up slowly. There's no need to rush him into anything. He's been European champ, British European champ, WBC international and everything. He's done all that. So there's nothing wrong with starting off low and rebuilding. Because if you throw him back in at them top level fights, which that's what Sam wants. I know Sam is a fighter, and that's all he's gonna want. He's thrown straight back in at them fights. But there's nothing wrong with rebuilding as well.
What do you think Sam could achieve? What do you think realistically he could set out for then if he was to return? And what do you think he could win?
Sam really, for what people would say, Sam's overachieved already. He's got a good team behind him, so he can achieve anything. Matchroom will get him the fights. Sam's only got to do the business, which he's been doing. He's just had a drop in performance maybe in his last couple of fights, albeit against good fighters, both of them.
And obviously on that undercard, sticking at light middleweight, we saw Anthony Fowler and Scott Fitzgerald fight, 2 former Team GB campmates, as it were. Did you catch that one?
Yeah, I watched that. It was a great fight. Really good fight. Again, Fitzgerald fought the fight of his life. You know what I mean? He's I don't know. I thought like Fowler was blowing a bit. He seems to look like he's tired out early on, but Fitzgerald fought well. It was a great fight, back and forth. You know what I mean? And like I say, Fitzgerald done well, obviously with the knockdown as well, which helped him win the fight. But yeah, maintained it. It was a cracking fight.
The right winner in your eyes?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Obviously, for whatever reason, there was a lot more expectation around Anthony than what there was on Scott. Even though they both had a lot of a brilliant amateur background, they had a lot of build-up in that sense. Do you think this was what maybe Anthony needed, just to take the limelight off him and just for him to realise, okay, even though I've had this amazing amateur background, I can't take my eye off the ball?
I think it's how promoters, how fighters are promoted. You know what I mean? Fowler's always in on social media. People know Fowler probably more. You know, he's always tweeting this and that about everyone. So yeah, and like I say, everyone's following their Twitter spout, which made it more interesting. You know, people pick Fowler. Fowler won in the amateurs. So people that don't know boxing would probably be going off that. You know, you never know with some fans, but you know, Fitzgerald fought the fight and he got the win.
Now I want to come on to the heavyweights as well, and I'll just get your opinions on that. Something that you may well be ballooning up to soon. What are your thoughts on the current heavyweight setup in the sense of Anthony Joshua signed with Matchroom and DAZN, Tyson Fury now has got his deal with Frank, ESPN and Top Rank, and Deontay Wilder with Showtime and PBC. In terms of the networks and trying to deal with all that, do you think we will see those guys fight at all again, or do you think the network politics will stop those three from fighting at some point now?
You will, because there's only so long they can fight people that are going to knock over, you know what I mean? You will see, but there'll be a lot of, like I say, politics. There's boxing in politics from the bottom to the top. You'll see it, but there'll be a lot of back and forth about who's getting paid what, and that's what it all comes down to, is the money. You know, the world champions all beat. Joshua's got more bouts. Should he get more? Should they get 50-50 to make the fight? Don't know. Just a fan. Just a fan.
Who, in your opinion, is the best of the three?
Why would you throw that one at me then? You know what? Fury's going to cause problems for both of them, because the best time to take Fury was when he come back, when Wilder fought him, and Wilder could only get a draw. Second time round, I reckon Fury could do it. You know, he's got them cobwebs out of the way. Fury would be awkward, and I think he could do it. Wilder's only counting on that one big bomb in it that he can throw. Joshua tires towards the end of fights sometimes, well, most times. Would that be when Fury comes into it, if they fight? But again, I think the more threat for the way Joshua is maybe Wilder, throwing them big shots over the top. I don't know, it's interesting.
Well, Craig Cunningham, I know it's getting late. It's 10 o'clock now. We're in your local as well, so as he insisted that we come to his local, and I think it is round next. So I appreciate your time as always. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you. Hopefully not for the last time. Hopefully we do see you back in the ring as well, even though you're going to deny it.
Don't swear it.
But Craig, I appreciate your time. Thanks for speaking to Boxing Social.
Nice one. Cheers, mate. Thank you.